Hey, let's talk about a really easy subject that's totally not controversial. It's called historical revisionism. Look at that. Basically, what historical revisionism is changing history, or like revising it's in the name. Revising history, changing history. Look at this. This is cool too. And why that's a bad thing. Well, more specifically, why that's not a bad thing. It's a bad thing in a non-fiction context. But I would argue it is a good thing in a fiction context. And that's what I'm arguing. So sit down, strap in, I hopefully won't be long. So Battlefield 5 has been coming under fire lately due to historical revisionism, or at least that's what the people throwing fire on it would, throwing fire? Whatever. I hate this angle. But that's what they'd have you believe. Let's see if it works. Yes. Okay. So, yeah, that's what they would have you believe. Is that the game is, trying to convince you that this is the history. You know, that's what they say. They're like, I'm just gonna call it how it is. They don't like the fact that there is women in Battlefield 5. It's that simple. That's what they don't like. Okay, they claim that in the time period in the war that the game is set, pardon me for not remembering that information off the top of my head. I couldn't care less about Battlefield 5. But I do kind of care about this subject. Because I think historical revisionism is a good thing in fiction. Okay? I think it can be very fun in fiction. Because we have the non-fiction, we have the, whatever war this is, be it like World War I, World War II, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whichever war it is, we have documentaries about it, we have books about it, we have, this, that, and the third thing. We have so many things about it. So what is there really left to say about it? What is there really left to say about something like this? About about historical things, and like I said, it's either World War I, World War II, something like that. Regardless of what it is, what is there left to say about it? It's that simple. What is there left to say about it historically that has not already been said by something better? And that's very little, is what it comes down to. Very little, actually. And what historical revisionism can do is you can tell a new story. You can do something that has not been done yet. Case in point, there's, traditionally we haven't heard about women in World War II. I'm just going to assume it's World War II. We haven't heard about women in World War II. Let's hear about it, Let's imagine, let's use our brains, our imaginations, and let's come up with this story about women in World War II or whatever. I'm not even saying that that's the focus of the game. I'm just saying, we have the nonfiction. This game never claimed to be nonfiction. This is a fictionalized dramatization that you play, that you have total control over. Do you think that in World War II or World War I, I'm just going to assume it's World War II, do you think in World War II, the players, do you think the soldiers were teabagging each other in World War II? Do you think that's historically accurate? Come on, I want to hear it. It's not. That's what I'm getting at. It's not historically accurate. Video games are not historically accurate, even if they're very close to history, because players have control over them. So that inherently, the nature of a video game makes this not historically accurate. It creates a bit of revisionism already, because what you're doing is revising history. You're creating your own story. I'm hyper. But that's what you're doing. You're creating your own story in a video game. And that's what you're doing here. That's what you're doing here. And they're giving you the option to make a more engaging story. They're giving you an option to create the story more so than if it was accurate. Because why would you want it to be accurate? That's another thing. Why would you want to just see another version of something you've seen a million times? Of something you know how it goes? Why would you just want to see that again? It's ridiculous. Some of the best fiction is historical revisionism. Dante's Inferno is historical revisionism. The Divine Comedy is historical revisionism. One of the greatest stories ever written is historical revisionism. Because Dante Alighieri, basically wrote a fanfic about like his favorite poet or whatever, about Virgil. It's real. That's what it is. He just wrote a fanfic about hanging out with Virgil in like going through hell to save his beloved or whatever. That's what it is. That's what it is. Virgil did not do that. That was not something Virgil did. Virgil did not actually help his buddy Dante to go through hell. That didn't happen. But it's one of the best stories of all time. The Vincent and the Doctor. Doctor Who. Vincent Van Gogh gets to see the impact he had on the world. And also there's a monster that's like doing stuff to him. It's very fun. Doctor Who in general is very fun. My favorite type of Doctor Who episode is the episodes that are revisionist history. Furthermore, let me think. Assassin's Creed. Very fun. I know it's kind of a hot button issue. I know a lot of people don't like Assassin's Creed, but there's a very similar issue here with Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which was, there was a transgender character in Assassin's Creed Syndicate. A character who was born a woman and identifies as a man. And crybabies cried about it, baby. That's what they did. Saying that that kind of thing wouldn't happen in the setting that the game was taking place in. However, in the context of that game, it is a video game. That legitimately, Assassin's Creed's really weird with the meta stuff, but it's a video game. And even if it wasn't, who cares? Who cares? We create our future. We create the world that we want to live in. And also, we create our history. Of course, you don't want to forget history. You don't want to repeat history. But history is nothing. It's a story. History is a story. And stories suck if they're predictable. They do. And we always have the real history. We always have the real thing. The real thing not going out. Okay, the World War II, Victorian London, wherever Vincent van Gogh was, his whole deal. That all still exists. And we have the history of that stuff. It's over here. This is the history. This is the fun. History, fun. Both can exist. Most people aren't stupid enough. If this is what you're worried about, which I know it's not what you're worried about, you're worried about people just respecting women, honestly. But but I don't want to be that confrontational about it. But yeah, like, you're not worried about that. None of you are. But if what you're worried about is people forgetting history, I can tell you right now, there's nobody is stupid enough. This is a dumb concern, I'm going to tell you what. Nobody is going to confuse an episode of Doctor Who with actual history of Vincent van Gogh. Nobody is going to confuse Assassin's Creed Syndicate with actual Victorian England. And nobody is going to confuse Battlefield 5, the fifth in the long-running game series of just craziness and ridiculousness, and just high-octane battles, the competitor to Call of Duty. Let's call it how it is. Nobody is confusing the competitor of Call of Duty with actual U.S. history. It's not going to happen. So if that's your concern, you can sleep easy tonight, because that's not happening. Nobody, I guarantee you, not a person on this earth is playing Battlefield 5 and thinking to themselves, this is history. What they're thinking to themselves is, this is a video game. It's a fun video game, maybe. I haven't played it. I don't even think is it out yet. I don't know. But nonetheless, nobody is playing it and thinking it's history. They're thinking it is a video game, it is a fun video game, it is a story. And why would you just want to see the same story you've already seen? It's that simple. Why would you want to see something that you've already seen?